Well, I don't know about you, Donnie, but I'm glad the snow is gone. I had our run of a couple weeks and I'm all ready for spring. I'm sure you are too, because that's got to hurt business when you have half a foot of snow on the ground or more.
Yeah, well, it's a catch-22. It does hurt business. We can't get out and do but so much, but most of the guys, including myself, all have families. So when you hunker down with your family and you've got to be inside for multiple days at a time, number one, you save a lot of money, but number two, you kind of see what everybody's made of, and having to cook for a bunch of people for day after day, and it kind of felt good to be prepared, man. I'll be honest.
Yeah, we were fine the same way. We got a half a foot right on the nose, which was pretty big for our neck of the woods, but they were home for most of the week for school working remotely. The dishwasher never gets a break during that time. Now that they're going back to school, the dishes don't pile up quite as quickly.
Yeah, yeah, pros and cons.
Yep. Use a lot of hot water with that. Hey, it's Eric Smith here with the Carolina Contractor Show. Across from me, your lovely host and general contractor, Donnie Blanchard. And someone, speaking of hot water, I had to correct on, and it's you still slip up once in a while, but it's a water heater, not a hot water heater. And I know people sometimes give you grief about that, but we try to be correct on the show.
We've been on this for years, and it's funny because people who listen to the show weekly always throw that at me, and they're like, "Hey, dude, since you said that, I can't get it out of my head." And I'm glad we were able to make a lasting impression on so many folks. But me being on the job site, man, you wouldn't believe how many times I hear that, and I hear it from people who should know better. And it's kind of a slippery slope because you don't want to throw it out there, especially if you're talking to an inspector. You don't want to throw it out there that, hey, dude, it's just a water heater, and how can you heat hot water? But technically, it happened
No.
today, and I won't tell you the backstory, but it got my wheels spinning. And I will say that factory setting for a water heater is 125 ish,
Yeah.
and I've got mine jacked up to about 140 because I got teenage girls in the house, and we run out of hot water more frequently than not. But I had a scenario in my mind where if the water in the heater is down to about 115, 120, that's still pretty hot,
Mm-hmm.
and you have the setting up to about 140, then technically you're heating hot water. You're heating water that's already hot to a higher temperature. Is that fair?
Sorry, people may have not been able, who are watching the show on the YouTube, may have not seen the eye roll. But
That looked like my teenage daughter. That was good.
but if that's the hill you want to die on and say you're technically right that it's at that point a hot water heater, that's fine. But it's a water heater. But let's not get into that because we could do a whole show on that argument back and forth. Again, this is the Carolina Contractor Show. Website, place to start, thecarolinacontractor.com. We got the YouTube link there. So if you want to watch this show and watch me roll my eyes, you can do that. If you like to listen to podcasts on your own time, you can download all our past shows. The average show has 3 podcasts. Like 98% of all shows go 3 shows and then they bail. We've got a few hundred shows up there. We've been doing this for years because we really enjoy doing it. And so if you want to find out of a specific topic or something we've talked about, that's how they're listed. And you can download them, listen to them in your own free time. Also, if you have a question about your house, like, where is my water heater? That might be something we can help you with. A simple question, maybe you have a detailed question. Donnie, again, as a general contractor, deals with houses from the time you're getting that foundation started to when you put the drip edge on the roof and finish putting up doorknob handles and give them the CO. So hit the button that says Ask the Contractor, and you can ask any question about your house. Ask about that water heater. As a matter of fact, specifically title any question you have water heater question, and then we'll know you were referencing that. But I don't mean to dig at Donnie that much because he's the brains of this show. I'm the beauty. And what we want to talk about today is housing is just the topic of everything. People are having trouble finding affordable housing, getting into a house. Supplies are going up. Let me find that little factoid before we get in this, Donnie. Lumber prices are trending up. December 2025, lumber price futures are based on 1,000 board feet. They were $530 per 1,000 board feet in December, and now here we are in February, and they're $610 per 1,000 board feet. That's a 13% increase in just a couple months. And spring building season is coming. That means demand's going to go up. You see it and I see it because of our jobs. We're directly tied to, I sell lumber, you use lumber, so we see it. That means housing prices are going to go up. It's just a matter of fact. You can say tariffs have an effect on it too, but they're going to go up. So it's probably not the information you want to hear if you're trying to buy a house or build a house like you do custom builds and stuff, Donnie. I mean, you probably see it all the time.
Yeah, well, things have been stable for so long. I don't want to say spoiled is the right word for us, but I haven't watched it like I used to. And no secret that lumber prices went through the roof to the tune of 50% 4 years ago, post pandemic. And we had houses in motion that felt the pain of the lumber price increases. So definitely don't want that to happen again. We've been fortunate because most of what we do is cost plus. So we're kind of insulated from that external factor. However, I work for these people and my heart is right. So I want them to pay a fair price for a house, and that way everybody's happy in the end. And I think what happened 4 years ago is the price of everything went up. And so what we're seeing now, if lumber is the only thing that's fluctuating in a crazy way, then hopefully that'll be contained. And I've been doing a little digging. I hadn't done a normal amount of research that I do because I haven't had time with the workload, but it does trouble me when I see domestic lumber yards shutting down. So anything stateside going out of business really bothers me. And it's not just one or two. I keep tabs on a handful of these lumber yards, and some big players have gone out of business or are slated to go out of business. So I don't see the end game from that being a good thing. However, I do know that, and I trust the administration to continue to trend things in the right direction. And that means that they need to maybe ease the tariffs on imported lumber. And that's an easy enough thing to do. And surely they can see the writing on the wall. If this is coming down the pipe, they should make a move sooner than later.
I agree with that 100%. You just can't continue to harm things that can generate positive effects in the economy. I'm not saying I'm against tariffs. I think there needs to be an equal effect on both sides of the pond or across the border when it comes to tariffs. You can always negotiate that. And I think he went really strong, speaking of President Trump, on his tariffs, just to set up a bargaining chip. So, okay, we can talk these back down. Domestically, I think it's a huge thing, get those lumber yards back going. That could happen, but it's not going to be quick. They're still in the process, as you pointed out. More of them are shutting down than opening up. Once that supply gets to a point where it's worthwhile for them to open up, it's relatively quick to get one restarted. Probably not going to be happening this year. But as we mentioned, Trump, just in the news the past week, was these things called Trump homes. I'm sure you saw this, Donnie. Here's what he's proposing: large-scale rent-to-own program with affordable entry-level single-family homes, not like multifamilies or things like that. Think of it this way. You can go to a store and rent-to-own a TV or a sofa or a computer or a bedroom suite. So now they're talking about maybe you can rent-to-own a whole house. This isn't necessarily a new idea. There's a place in Texas, for one, called Pathway Homes. They've done rent-to-own homes for about 5 or 6 years, and their basic thing is they build a home, they run a contract with a buyer. Buyer can get like a 2 or 3 bedroom house for $1,900 a month, and over time they're going to get credits towards buying that house. So like a rent-to-own. First thoughts, just with that information, Donnie, what does that make you think?
I think that if it's that versus renting to rent only, then great. And I think that there are a lot of people just riding down the road thinking about the show today. I'm just reflected on a personal experience, and got 2 kids in their early 20s here, and they have suffered from this gap in basically the world, where they weren't able to carry on like we were. And we kind of eased into the family life, eased into home ownership, and the job got better. We got paid more as we went, and things just went like they were supposed to, where these young 20s, mid-20s folks have been shocked. And I don't want to call it a whole decade's worth, but at least a half decade where things have just been out of control. And everything from inventory to house prices to the price of lumber being insane. And who in their early 20s can afford the average cost of a house at $450,000, $500,000? So I just think that combination has really set them back. And I think that we have to overcompensate in the other direction to get some of these people in houses. And if rent to own is the best way to do that, I'm all for it.
Yeah, and the big issue with first-time home buyers, especially like the example you're getting in your 20s or getting your career started, is the down payment. Not that you have to have one. As we've said before, always get a realtor because they have lots of ways to help get you in a house. But on the average, they just can't come up with the money. The stat is the average renter has less than $10,000 that they've got ready for a down payment on a house. So this program is, they even came up with a little slogan, a path to ownership without needing $50,000 cash up front. Technical term to address what you're talking about in a personal life situation is the median home price versus the median household income is the worst that it's been in 40 years. Historically, a house that would be 5 times the amount of the buyer's household income. All right. So if you made 50,000 a year, the house you would want would usually only be 5 times that. Now that rate is up to 7.1 times your annual household income. And if you don't have that down payment, you don't even make a shot at trying to buy a house. There's a shortage of houses. This is one of the things Trump talked about, Donnie. Deregulation, getting more houses built. I'm just going to say, I'm positive from your side of things, getting rid of some of the red tape of building a house would be a huge step in this process of building a lot of affordable housing.
Yeah, whether you're a contractor or a homeowner who's ever tried to build your own house, deregulation would be a gift from God, because the red tape will absolutely kill you. And it's not just inspections that you have to go through. You have to go through all the regulatory agencies in your municipality before you ever break ground. So sometimes that means planning, zoning. If you're in the county, it's environmental health for well and septic. And then after they are all satisfied and they give you what's called a construction authorization, that will give you the green light to actually apply for a permit. Then you got to go through all that, and that's your structural stuff and everything that you pay the big bucks for. So yeah, deregulation would be very helpful, and we would all celebrate. Hopefully, if there's some kind of deregulation put in place that makes things easier, that it would carry over to the following few administrations. But I got a strong feeling that the first place they'll start is in the commercial world, and hopefully we get some trickle down in the residential.
Yeah. Now, it's interesting you say that about the environmental impacts and the permitting process before you can even put a shovel in the ground. My son is in college, and one of the things he's majoring in is environmental biology. He says, I want to be a conservative conservationist, being realistic of things. We're not going to save a 4-legged worm toad, and or something like that if it's not truly endangered. But one of his I guess a mentor or someone he's trying to get some work with over the summer said, man, if he's going to do environmental biology and inspections before building stuff, he said he'll never have a day without work. He'll be slammed because there's so much they have to do before you can even start. I mean, once you put the permit in, nothing happens very quickly because you have to have all those surveys and things done. He says, man, He'll be working forever.
Yeah.
So I understand that. Now,
highly encourage that.
Yeah, I do too, because he's my retirement program. Now, I'm going to jump real quick into how this proposal works, and maybe you can put some real world experience to this, Donnie. What the Trump house or Trump home proposal does is it's going to target entry level homes. They're price pointing these at 250 to 350. Geography matters. Obviously, that's not going to be in downtown LA or New York or a big city. Learn to live rural. I commuted 50 minutes to work each way, and I have a house that would cost 2.5 times the mortgage if I were in town. You have a, relatively speaking, a good commute. You're in the sticks, right?
Oh yeah, for sure. We're about 25 minutes from the interstate. So yeah, you learn to live with it. It's not a bad thing. And I guess if you really want to put it on paper from a budget standpoint, I think the savings are still there. It's not like an extra tank of gas a week is going to, make up for $200,000 saved on where you live.
Yeah. So if you're willing to live a little bit farther away, you can, $350,000 can go a long way today.
I agree. And, I think that part is important to note. And I don't know that this thing is going to hit our area. I really feel like they'll start in the bigger cities.
Yeah.
To call out Charlotte or Raleigh around here is probably where we'll find that. That said, find enough land. I think they called for about 1 million homes in this plan. That if they pass the bill for this, it's going to be at about 1 million. And I would say that they'd probably break that down to 100, 200, 300 per subdivision, and still finding that enough land to put everybody on city water and sewer, or what that looks like if everybody's on a community well and septic. That deregulation will have a heavy hand in making that either work or not.
Okay. So here's how it's going to work, Donnie. A home builder like yourself, or it could be a group, constructs entry-level homes, again, in that price point of 250 to 350. A private investor or investor pool buys the home or homes from the builder at completion. Now, that investor rents the home to a qualified tenant buyer. That's what we're going to call the person.
Mm-hmm.
It's a 3-year lease term. And what they do is a portion of the monthly rent, they're talking somewhere between 20 and 40%, is credited toward future down payment. So if you're spending, we'll keep the math easy, $1,000 a month on the mortgage, 200 or 400 some dollars every month is going to go towards a future down payment on the house. After 3 years, the tenant has the option to purchase at a pre-agreed to price. So when they first went in this agreement, day one, they said the cost of this house is going to be $300,000. 3 years later, when you say, I want to buy this house now, it's $300,000. I like that. You don't have to worry about the house going up in value so much that it will be impossible for you to earn the credits to get it. That means no large down payment required. You get equity because, ironically, by paying those monthly payments and then you start buying it, when you own the house, you've got all that equity built in. The investor, short term, gets rental income, potential appreciation, and the builder's going to get a guaranteed bulk purchase of homes, meaning they don't have to build 1 or 2 homes, and they're going to make it worth their while. But
yeah.
Could you do it on a smaller scale?
No doubt. What would have to come into play for that to actually work is, I know that Trump has put something in place, and I do believe this either has passed or will pass soon. He's blocking institutional investors from buying new construction. So getting a lot of these big players off the table is going to make a big difference for the average family trying to buy a house. And that, even in my world, when you hear somebody say, hey man, I've got a beat on a really good lot or 2 or 3 lots, you jump all over it because those off-market deals are really the only chance you have to capitalize before the big money players get involved. And they're 100 times more wealthy than the average person. So throwing $500,000, $1 million around is no big deal for them. But what that does is just screws up everything for the little man.
Yeah.
And but I do think that that's definitely doable. And you get 250 out of that 1,000 towards your down payment in that 3rd year. It's not a lot of difference than reverse amortization when you take out a regular loan, because you're not getting very much towards the principal in a 30-year mortgage, from years 1 to 3, 4, 5, or even really till you get to year 15, where you kind of flip the other way and you're paying more principal than interest. So not a lot difference. And if that's the only avenue for them to get that down payment break, I'm all for that too.
I just thought of something, Donnie. There's a couple at our church, and they were moving, so they put their house up for sale and moved to Wilson, and their old house wasn't selling, so they rented it, and someone had rented it for 2 or 3 years and came to them and said, hey, I'm interested in buying your house. Will you use some of what I've already paid over the past 3 years, take off that from the total cost of the house? And they thought, okay, that's fine, and made the sale and got rid of the house. So it's already done on a small scale. I'm sure they're not the first person to ever do that, sell a house and then tell the renter, says, can I buy it? Will you give me some credit? So the pros of doing this would be, for the buyer, they're forced into savings. They're going to have a portion of their money that's going to the mortgage put to the side as a credit, but they also see the end game. I can own this home. They got a locked in price. I also think they're going to really learn about the house and things that they need to do or ways they can expand it in the future, because they'll be there for 3 years before they even start buying it. For a builder, if they're getting all these lots to build on, large, predictable sales volume. What sells? Volume. The investor, they're going to make money on it, like a traditional rental. society in general. I think it increases home ownership rates. It helps neighborhoods develop, reduces pressure on the rental markets. And part of what Trump's doing it for is, he said the American dream, build better, make America great again. Those things, technically, that could be another reason he's doing it, but it's good economics. Anything you can think would be another positive to it, or?
Yeah, well, and I'm glad you said that because I've been waiting for him to do something, man. We talked about the big beautiful bill a few months back when that surfaced, and they really didn't have anything in there for first time home buyers. It was mainly incentivized towards commercial construction, multifamily builders, and that doesn't affect me, doesn't help me, and that's selfishly speaking. But at that point, it just looked like they were trying to put roofs over heads, where there were rent just to, rent or anything they could do just to get people in houses, and that doesn't tackle the home ownership problem and the long game is what I'm trying to say there. So, yeah, and I think that the solution is a threefold approach. So, deregulation being a really important part of it, and all these things need to happen simultaneous for this to really work. But deregulation being a big part of that. No, cutting the red tape out. The cost of the construction can't go up. It can't get crazy. And I say cost of construction, not price of houses. So I'll explain what I mean there. But and the mortgage rates have to continue to come down. I know there's a new chairman for the Federal Reserve. The last guy, he's out, and I'm drawing a blank on his name. You probably remember Jerome Powell. So Powell, he basically had the keys to the kingdom right there, and they teased interest rate drops all last year. I think we were August or September, and they said there were going to be 3 more drops before the end of the year, and that didn't necessarily happen. It may have happened in terms of a few half or a quarter of a percentage point here and there, but it didn't apply to all banks, and definitely didn't run across the board. So those 3 things: deregulation, the price of new construction, and the interest rates coming down, all need to happen for anybody to be able to pull this off. And, to not just talk about it, but to be about it. The reason I said I'll elaborate on the cost of construction versus the value of existing homes is because I heard Trump, in his own words, say that he does not want house prices to go down. So that's the craziest thing when you think about the cost of construction has to stay stable, but he doesn't want the price of houses to go down. And I kind of understand, because you and I are in that boat. We just said it, that your house is worth 2.5 times what it was when you paid for it, or what a mortgage would be now on that same house. And I'm in the same boat. I built my house, 13, 14 years ago, and the value of my house has doubled. It cost half to build my house what it would cost these days. So, basically my house is the biggest asset that I have in terms of just a fallback plan. I don't plan on selling my house to retire off that money, but at the same time, these people who have been consistent and faithful to their mortgage payment for 15 out of the 30-year mortgage, and all of a sudden, house prices go up. Well, that's great for me. It's bad for all the young people, but I don't want to be punished because I paid my dues all at the same time.
Yeah, the boomer hate's ridiculous. It just makes the younger generation seem whiny. And not to go too far into that, the Generation X and Y that are going, boomers suck and blah, blah, blah. It's like, there's a thing called, and anybody can look this up, the Great Wealth Transfer.
Yeah.
That generation is going to become the wealthiest by far through inheritance as the boomer population decreases and assumes room temperature. And they will have done nothing to earn it but be born. So they're actually, when they say boomers had it easy, they're actually not realizing they're going to have it even easier than that, because they will literally inherit trillions of dollars and have 3 homes. You mentioned some of the cons of it. I want to point out a few more of the Trump houses, because the idea is good, but the execution could be crazy complex, because you've got to get builders, investors. I don't think you'll have a problem with potential renters, lenders, because somebody's got to have the money. We talked about location. If you're willing to live a little farther out, you can get a good deal. If you're thinking you're going to get a Trump house in downtown Charlotte or downtown Raleigh, that ain't going to happen. A risk for the tenant is if they can't buy after 3 years or decide not to, they're going to lose those credits. You can't transfer them to another house. So if you've lived there for 2 years and 10 months and you've got theoretically $23,000 worth of credits to buy the house, and you decide I can't afford it, when you move, that $23,000 credit goes out the window. You're back down at zero. I'm worried about taxpayers, how they could end up footing some of the bill for this. I'm not against incentives, but they're going to try to build some big program with $1 billion bureaucracy and everything. You kind of hit on this, regulatory hurdles, zoning, local building permits, and all that. It sounds great, but it ain't going to happen quick. And the biggest interference is going to be the same group that's trying to build it, and that's going to be the government.
Yeah. Well, to touch on what you said about the down payment being lost if you don't make it in that third year and you don't qualify to actually buy the house, I think that they need to make the screenings really strict on who they give these houses to, and do a deeper dive than just a credit score and all the things, that's on the table as well, that they're not just taking your credit score into account. But if you look at it this way, if they were renting an apartment, which I guess how much apartments are going for in the main areas, I mean, they're $2,000 a month for a couple of bedrooms, and it's just insane to me that people are doing that. It's probably not going to be a lot different than that. So if you're not able to continue the rent to own program after the third year, it's still going to be about the same thing as you renting an apartment.
And you just don't want to lose those credits, because that's the whole point of doing it. This is something they're talking. Could it happen this year? The wheels could get rolling. It's still a proposal. I don't think it's going to happen this year. It's been pitched by builders more than anybody else. I think Lennar Homes was one of the big ones that said, hey, we're in on this. They do need to open it up to smaller builders who, if they say, hey, I can get you 12 houses done in a year, we'll find a tract of land in their area, that's especially rural, that can hold a dozen homes, and say, have at it, do it. This helps solve the problem. Hopefully they spread that wealth around. But there's no formal legislation. There's no executive order. I keep going back to deregulation has to happen before the first shovel hits the ground. They've 100%. Just got to make it easy.
Yeah, 100%. If they went out and just said, hey, we're going to go 60 miles outside of Raleigh, and we're going to search for all the 20, 30 acre tracts of land that are available, to fast track this thing, deregulation would have to be in place. So they would have to, get in touch with, they would have to put something pretty darn powerful in place to say that it affects all the municipalities. Because even today, if you build in a little rural town where, the inspections department has a lady that answers the phone, and then the main building inspector, he's the plan review guy, he's the inspector, he does everything, makes the coffee, he does everything. And versus one of these bigger municipalities that have 18 inspectors, they have 4 people answering the phone up front, and just all the admin to take care of that. You would have to put something in place that applied to all, small, large. And then when you bought these things, hey guys, like, we're going to get on board, we're going to have a government funded soil scientist out there just to see if that land perks. And because obviously 60 miles outside of Raleigh, you're not getting city water sewer. So that would be the first step. And then, maybe go ahead and vet your builders. If you really want to make this thing go, vet your builders. Have 20 builders, about the size of me, or we're not the smallest guy, we're not the biggest guy, but, we can probably handle, if we had to build 12 to 20 houses in a year that were all in the same area, that's totally doable. So have your builders on board, work the money out, and just put the right pieces in place so that if this thing can actually go, it'll happen.
Well, Donnie, if you got a bid where they said you'd have to build 26 houses, that just means, okay, we're getting the money for it, we're going to be able to build it, I will hire more people. So that's a win-win on top of it. You would have to expand your business. More people employed, good for the economy.
Yeah.
I think it's a bold idea. I have no idea if the execution is going to be possible. They'd have to modify it. They'd learn as they go. But I don't think it's a bad idea. I mean, what keeps a private home seller from doing a rent to own? I'm sure banks can work the paperwork where they say, hey, you pay me $1,000 a month and I'll give you $150 towards buying it. And if you're here 3 years later, you can buy the house from me. I'll give you some credit. This is just kind of scaling it up. But I do think you kind of hit on a point there about you could do 12, 20 houses. To be really effective, local level scaling. That's the 3-word phrase from this. Got to have the ability for builders to say, hey, I can't build 50 homes in a weekend like these tract guys, but I can build really good quality houses in the sticks between 250 and 350,000 and be game for this idea. I think it's a wonderful idea, at least in our minds.
Well,
Execution's a whole different thing.
I'm going to be devil's advocate to that point, and I
Mhm.
don't mean to be pessimistic, but when you think about my world versus a track builder's world, that's pretty much what they're doing anyway. They're gobbling up the big pieces of land. They have land acquisition teams and all these in-house folks. They're just vertically integrated where they're ready to go find this land, and that's what they do now. And they sell to people cheaper by the square foot than I can sell because they're cramming these houses into a third of an acre, and but they find this land and basically they do everything except the rent to own part. So I think that's what the new intro incentive is like rent to own is going to change the game a little bit. But like you said, Lennar, I saw where Bill Pulte, he's involved with the very higher ups in the government, so he's got a hand in on that, and I don't think he's just an advisor. So I don't know, those guys, I just can't stand a track builder. The quality of what we crank out versus them is not even close. But I also get it, and if that's what it takes just to get a roof over all these young people's head in terms of a homeowner and not just have them as a renter, then I can't help but get behind that as well.
You made a good point there. The big guys are going to come in and they're going to try to take advantage of it and use their weight, throw it around to get these bigger offers. But maybe they can modify it as time goes through. The beginning, yeah, the big boys will be in there, just put down 50 houses, add water, and poof, you got a 2-story, 3-bedroom house. But then slowly scale it to these better builders. And I'm not saying they're bad builders, but people like you are going to not be doing it for speed and volume. You're going to be doing it to make quality housing. Scale it down so that they can have those 12, 20, 30 house builds and really make some impressive houses that are really affordable too. So maybe that's 5-10 years down the road.
Yeah, I'll take it. Either way, it just needs to happen, man. Get these kids out of the house. I think this might be the best time to be a stay-at-home, the best time in history to be a stay-at-home grown child. And, that can't last forever, dude. Mama's boy is not cool.
I agree with that. If my kids are gainfully employed and participatory and running the household and everything, I would consider that a joy. It's how we used to all live, generations ago in much smaller houses. So I will never fault my kids saying, okay, you need a couple of years to, get ready to make a move on your own. If you're productive, fine. I'm not going to hate that. But
no, I'm not talking about that. I'm talking about when they hit 35, 40, you got to go, man.
No, that's failure to launch. That's a whole different thing. I get you on that. All right. Well, it'll be interesting to see how this goes as the weeks and months go on. And with the new Fed, will he cut interest rates? Will they want to put him in because he says he'll cut them? That would have a big effect. But we'll see what Trump homes come about as we get into spring and summer. And hopefully the lumber prices and stuff won't go too high, and we'll try to keep things affordable. Yeah.
Yeah. Full agreement.
For those of you listening, Johnny put up his prayer hands from my lips to God's ears that the prices stay that way.
Yep.
Hit the website, thecarolinacontractor.com. You want to learn more about the show or get the links to the YouTube site, and got any questions or comments about the show, we love to hear them. Love to have your involvement. And we thank you for tuning in and hope to see you next week.
Thanks, everybody. Love you guys.
Aw.